Hello, I'm Ed Rosenberg, Professor of Gerontology in the Sociology Department at Appalachian State University. Welcome to the first Age-Wise program. Some people say it was Betty Davis, others credit Katharine Hepburn. But whoever said it, it had the ring of truth. Old age ain't for sissies. And that was never truer than it is today. More of us are living longer, and for some older people, it isn't always pretty. We created Age-Wise to help guide us through aging, which can be a happy and rewarding time of life. If you watch our weekly programs, we hope they'll help you see that plus 50 or 60 or 70 can truly be a golden time filled with opportunity and joy. I can think of no one better equipped to guide us on our journey than our three guests. Julie Wiggins is the director of the High Country Area Agency on Aging. Brenda Reese is the director of the High Country Caregivers Foundation. And Cindy Lamb is the High Country Area Agency on Aging Options Counselor. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Julie, area agencies on aging emerged out of the Older Americans Act of 1965. Can you tell us a little bit about that history of area agencies on aging and how we got to have one here in the High Country?
Actually, the area agencies on aging was a concept pioneered in the Southeast, again, out of the Older Americans Act, and pioneered here as a local response to the needs of aging and older people. And out of that, they became formalized thereafter, and now there are 16 across North Carolina.
And we probably should mention at the outset that often when we talk about area agencies on aging, we call them the AAAs. We use the acronym, and we want to be sure that people don't confuse that with the Automobile Association. So when we say AAAs, we're referring to the Area Agency on Aging.
Correct.
Brenda, there's been some exciting news in our AAA related to your High Country Caregivers Foundation recently. You were nationally recognized. Tell us about that.
We were, and thanks to my boss, she submitted the application. It was the Innovative Program Award, and the N4A selected the High Country Caregiver
Now,
Foundation.
what is the N4A?
The N4A is the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. So Julie submitted the application, and we were fortunate enough in that they chosen us as one of the recipients. And we'll be going to Philadelphia in July to accept the award.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And what were the criteria for this award? What was it that made the High Country Caregivers Foundation stand out?
They were looking for unique programs that are sustainable and leveraging funds, just thinking outside the box, and the High Country Caregiver Foundation has certainly done that.
Well, in addition to heading this up, you're also the Family Caregiver Support Specialist at the AAA. What exactly do you do in your job and through the foundation that can help caregivers? What types of people qualify? What kinds of services can you provide for them?
So my job basically as the Family Caregiver Specialist is to assess the needs of caregivers in the community and then try to develop programs and services to address the needs that were identified. We did a survey several years ago, and respite was a huge need of caregivers. And respite, for those of you that don't know, is a temporary break from the actual caregiving duties. The intent from the government's view is to keep people out of facilities because, of course, it's more cost effective. They can remain in their own home with some support. So as such, we developed the High Country Caregiver Foundation, which is a freestanding 501c3 nonprofit, and it just gives us some added power to leverage resources. So far this is our 8th year, and we have been able to award family caregivers in the 7 counties now with $500 vouchers, and with those vouchers they can redeem them for respite care.
So if I'm an adult child of an aging parent and it's driving me crazy and I'm starting to break down physically and mentally, I could contact the AAA or the High Country Caregivers Foundation, and one of the things they could provide for me is money to pay for respite care so I can take a day off. Is that correct?
Actually, we don't. We pay the provider directly, but that, and we also offer support groups. We have a group respite program. We offer case management services on a limited basis. So pretty much we just meet with that caregiver and try to assess the whole situation and see what services we can put in place to best help them, because then hopefully they can go on caring a little bit longer for their loved one.
Okay. Julie, in addition to elder care, what other kinds of programs and services does the AAA provide?
In terms of direct services, of course, we've talked about the caregiver support program. We also have a long-term care ombudsman program, and I always explain the term ombudsman as a fancy word for advocate. It's actually Swedish for advocate. And our long-term care ombudsman, Laura Jane Ward, goes to the various facilities in the High Country, the 7 Northwest counties, speaks with the residents and asks if they have any concerns and works to resolve those concerns. And she does that on a number of different platforms, whether it's mediation or brokering. She has different techniques that she uses to resolve the concerns that they have, and it's resident-driven.
And when you say she goes to facilities, what kinds of facilities are we talking about?
Long-term care, so skilled nursing, adult care homes, commonly known as assisted living facilities, family care homes, which is basically the same level of care, except for 6 or fewer residents. We also have a number of contracted services that we support through the area. And we have 9 contracted providers in the 7 counties. And the services that are provided with the funding and support that we give are home delivered meals, congregate nutrition, transportation, adult daycare, and in-home aid services. Also, there's a small program of housing and home improvement in one of our counties.
So if an older person needs some assistance with transportation, or they can't cook for themselves on a regular basis anymore, or they need any of these other services, they are available.
Correct.
And how does someone pay for them? Are they free? Are they on a sliding scale?
At this time, they're at no cost, and the funding is provided through federal and state dollars. The funding, however, has been reduced over the years. Simultaneously, the older adult population is growing. So the services are getting more competitive. We have growing waiting lists. And what we've been working with the contracted providers on is how to expand service delivery and not just provide it strictly through these Older Americans Act dollars or these home and community care block grant dollars, as we commonly refer to them as, but looking at sliding fee scales and how to make that feasible,
Okay,
fundraising efforts,
so
et
the
cetera.
services are affordable regardless of someone's income.
Correct.
That's good to know. Cindy, you're the local contact agency coordinator. It's a handful of a name. What exactly does someone in this position do?
I just started, so I'm actually still training for that, but I will be helping people that are in skilled nursing facilities that possibly want to try to transition back into the community. I'll be going and giving them, helping them to know the different options that they can have to try to go back into the community, to try to get out of the skilled nursing facility.
What would be a situation where someone might use your services?
The state would contact me and give me a referral, and I would go to one of the skilled nursing facilities in the 7 counties that we have, and I would go and talk with that person. And it can be an elderly person, or it could be someone with a disability, and they are asked, several times during the year if they want to try to move back into the community. So I would go and help them and try to see if it's feasible for them to move back into the community, if they're able to do that, if there are the right supports and private or public or whatever, or if they have family that would support them to move back into the community.
Well, if someone's in assisted living or in a nursing home, and there's a possibility that they might be able to leave there and move back, as you say, into the community, what are the advantages of that?
Well, for one thing, it would be less expensive, for them, and they would be happier. Most people don't want to be in a skilled nursing facility if they can help it, but it just may not be feasible. They may not be able to do that, but they would definitely. Most people want to move back in the community if at all possible.
And if you have someone in a facility and perhaps they have an adult child who also is a caregiver, who contacts you? Does a facility contact you? Does the older person contact you? Does the older child contact you? How would they get in touch with you?
Usually the facility asks the resident so many times a year if they want to try to move back into the community. And then the facility, I believe, from what I understand, will contact the state, and then the state will contact me.
Doesn't every resident want to move back
You would
into the
think so.
community?
You would think so, but I think a lot of them probably, either don't have family or they know maybe that's the best place for them, or, I think it just depends. I'm sure there's going to be some of them that maybe have Alzheimer's or whatever, and they're not able to, but they have to, by law, they have to ask them that so many times a year.
And so your job is to assess whether that request is viable or not, and if so, what kinds of support services have to be put into place.
And show them their options, kind of what their options are.
Well, this seems very good, because we used to just put older people in institutions, and that's about the last you would hear from them. But now we realize that it's actually better for them psychologically and socially, and it's also less expensive to be able to move them back into the family or back into some other kind of
Exactly.
community setting. That's great. Julie, in terms of, again, accessing AAA services, how do people find out about that? Are there websites? Is there just one phone number that they can use to say, I'm dealing with this problem, I wonder what you can do for it? How do people get in touch with the right program and the right person?
I think different people access our information different ways. We do have a single telephone number that people will often call and will be transferred to our department. We also have our website through the High Country Council of Governments, and we also have a Facebook page.
Okay. Now, I noticed none of you is an older person, yet your careers involve working with or for older people. How did you get interested in that? Cindy, let's start with you.
I changed careers a few years ago and I did my graduate studies here at ASU in gerontology and just finished that recently. And I was fortunate enough to do my internship with Brenda with the foundation and loved it. And she and I worked well together. So she hired me, and I've been working with her for about a year. And then I also just took the job as the LCA coordinator. So I had always wanted to work in something with the elderly and just decided it was time to do that. So I just kind of changed careers recently.
Brenda, how about you?
Mine, I guess, I worked at Cannon Memorial Hospital for 8 years as the director of social work there, and quickly determined that I like older people. I am not a kid person. I enjoy the company of seniors. I think they have a lot to teach us, and I like to think I'm getting wiser as I age, and I like to think everybody else does as well. So I just seem to be drawn to that population. I enjoy working with them and their caregivers. And I also have a program for grandparents raising grandchildren. So in my job, I pretty much get the gamut. They bring the children to the meetings. So I have some interaction with children, all the way up to caregivers or any age, and then the actual seniors that are clients.
Julie, how about you?
And somewhat similar with Brenda, actually, I thought I wanted to work with children. I was studying sociology in undergrad at ASU, and one of the last classes that I had, we talked about the graying of America, and sparked my interest, and pretty quickly thereafter realized I want to work with older people. And at that point, you and I met. I was interested in the graduate gerontology program, and it was just a very natural fit for me. I really enjoy working with older people. I agree with what the others said, there's a lot of wisdom and insight and life experience that they have to offer. So it's very rewarding work.
Well, and Brenda, you mentioned grandparents raising grandchildren. I know that elder care is a huge issue. One of the cliches that we toss about is that in the 1980s and 90s, childcare was a big issue. The progressive companies would provide childcare for their baby boomer employees with young children. Well, now these baby boomers are middle-aged and young old, and they have aging parents. And so the issue now becomes not childcare, but elder care. And there are some companies that actually are providing elder care options for their employees. When we talk about grandparents raising grandchildren, is that something different from elder care?
It is. It's for, we refer as grandparents raising grandchildren, but it's any kinship caregiver. It's anyone who has taken on the care of a minor child, 18 or younger, and they have the primary responsibility, and it's widely prevalent in our region. It's way more than people realize. We have a large group. There's a huge population in Avery County as well, and it's for a lot of reasons. In other parts of the country, it might be military deployment. So the parents are deployed, the kids go to live with grandma. Here in my program, the majority of the children are with the grandparents because the parents either don't want to or choose not to parent these children, and the grandparents step in. I have a lot of clients that are caring for their elderly parents and raising grandchildren. And it's two separate, the criteria is different through the National Family Caregiver Support Program. For a grandparent raising a grandchild, the age is 55 or older. And for just a senior, it's 60 or older. So it's going to have to be addressed. It's huge. It's huge here in Watauga and all 7 of our counties. It's a big problem. And as funding becomes reduced, it causes a lot of other issues. Daycare is huge, and that subsidy has been changed. So a lot of my grandparents are extremely concerned that they're going to have to quit their jobs because they have no one to watch these kids during the summer. There's a lot of issues related to it as well.
Well, that seems very significant. Julie, you mentioned all the different programs that the AAA can provide. What do you think is the biggest unmet need of older people in our region?
One of the things that stands out to me the most is transportation. I think there are a lot of unmet needs, but I think transportation is a particular challenge in this area because we're rural and we're mountainous, and there are a lot of places that are very remote and they're very difficult to access, particularly, and not only for the block grant services as we refer to, or our contracted services, whether it's in-home aid or home-delivered meals. It's challenging to reach those people in remote areas, but it's also challenging for those people to access health care.
What would someone do if I'm an older person out in a very rural area and I don't drive much, and I especially don't drive in the winter? What would I do to get transportation services from the AAA?
They could either contact us directly, or they could contact their local senior center, who would then connect them with either transportation services that they could purchase directly, or if the transportation service was available to them through the contracted services that we provide, then they could arrange for those services as well.
Okay. Cindy, in your time working for the Area Agency on Aging, what do you think is an unmet need, something where you feel perhaps with some more resources the AAA could make a big difference in the lives of older people in our region?
I think one of the things, excuse me, that I've seen is people don't know quite where to get everything yet. That's one thing that I think we're working on probably, is they don't know where to get all the services that they need maybe. And I think that's probably nationally, it's not just in our area, but hopefully that's something that we can help them with. But older people just, they don't know what's available, what's out there that they can partake of. So
So just developing awareness or knowledge.
yes.
What you're saying is often older people may have needs, but they don't know that help is available.
Yes.
They don't know that there are programs. All right, let's say that they do know that there's a program. Then they have to be convinced that they should use it. They have to develop a positive attitude toward this. Are there any factors in rural culture or subcultures out here, perhaps ethnic or racial subcultures, that might work against people developing a positive attitude toward using the services that the AAA offers?
Do you want me
Brenda?
to?
Sure.
I'm happy to.
Brenda's probably more familiar with that.
Because I'm not a native of this region, it might be more noticeable to me. My big challenge is Appalachian natives do not self-identify as a caregiver. They are mistrusting of outsiders. They don't want strangers in their home. It's difficult. When I ask, are you a caregiver, most of them don't identify. That's just what they do. They take care of their own. It's kind of that mentality. So it's a little bit more challenging in our region. But the other thing is not only do they know not what services, they don't know how to coordinate them. Geriatric care management, I think there is definitely a need. I get a lot of calls for those services. So we're going to have to adapt to meet the needs of our population as it changes. But the Appalachian culture presents challenges in and of itself. It's a different culture.
Well, there's a strong ethic of independence
Absolutely.
in rural areas, not just here in the mountains, but
Right.
probably in rural areas anyway. And there's a rational justification for that ethic of independence, especially if you go back to the Depression era and after that. I think a lot of these attitudes and beliefs can be explained looking at it historically. Julie, do you agree that that's an issue, or do you have ideas about what you might do to get the AAA's word out there a little better?
We actually are undergoing a branding and marketing campaign right now. Nicole Hegel is our aging services coordinator, and she is helping us develop a new website. She's developed our Facebook page. We have a new logo, and so we're really trying to make a more concerted effort to reach people beyond the current participants of senior centers or people that are already aware of our services and supports. We want to reach the more remote older adults residing in the area.
Cindy, you said that your job involves assessing older people to see if they can be moved from some institutional living arrangement back into the community. Is this a problem of numbers? Are there too many older people who are in nursing homes or assisted living facilities, or will there be too many older people with the aging of the baby boomers? Or is this just a humane thing to do?
I don't think, I think it's, 5% that are in nursing homes or in skilled nursing facilities right now. I don't think that many people go to them that don't need to go to them, but I think there are some that maybe are there that could come back out into the community. I think it's just a matter of talking to them and seeing, possibly the family didn't have any other choice than to put them there at that point. Can you think of any other thing, Julie?
A little bit of the initiative behind is really a twofold program. We have the local contact agency and a Medicaid-funded program called Money Follows the Person. They're demonstration projects to see if ultimately it will help save federal and state dollars, particularly state dollars as it relates to Medicaid because of the high cost of long-term care, but also to help improve quality of life as many people would choose to age in the community or in their own home.
Well, when we hear about aging issues, especially if people are getting very excited or afraid of these, such as Social Security or Medicare, what we never hear them say is, if nothing changes. And we know that if nothing changes, as the baby boomers age, there won't be enough nursing home beds. So we have to look for alternatives. Fortunately, we have a better continuum of care now, so there are a lot of living arrangements possible for older people. Once again, every county has an area agency on aging available to it. And Julie, again, how would people connect with the area agency on aging if they want to find out about the services, about the cost, about eligibility?
I would suggest that they call our office at 828-265-5434 and ask for the Area Agency on Aging department. They can be transferred to any number of us, and we can connect them. If there's not a service that we provide directly through the regional office, then we can connect them to their local senior center.
Okay. Julie and Brenda and Cindy, I want to thank you very much. In 1965, the Older Americans Act created the Administration on Aging, which created the state units on aging, and North Carolina's the Division of Aging and Adult Services. And the state units on aging oversee the area agencies on aging. Every state has several of those. Whatever county you live in, you'll have one available to you. I hope that you've enjoyed our program. I'm Ed Rosenberg, inviting you to join us next time because we want you to age wise.